Well, the good news is Tommy's been released on bail, and not that surprising a thing. He's due in court in a couple of days' time, and they've been able to make their point, and that is the establishment, which is to label being at the Freedom Rally in Trafalgar Square as something to do with terrorism. And this is all about self-preservation. So it happens in a number of different ways. Self-preservation means that both GB News and Reform Party members or supporters have been told in no way should they attend or express support for the Freedom Rally in Trafalgar Square. That is a mandate. I can almost see the email. People out there have got it and could share it if they so choose, but then they'd be kicked off either GB News or Reform. So the important thing to note if you're a Reform supporter or GB News supporter is you don't want to lose those platforms. They're important to us. But what you have to recognise is they are in the business of self-preservation. And self-preservation in mainstream and politics and finance and, well, life actually says, sorry, I've got sweat in my eyes, says that you cannot be associated with anything to do with what Tommy Robinson is supposed to represent. Because, of course, what he actually represents is ordinary, decent people from all walks of life. So self-preservation says GB News can't be there, and self-preservation says Reform can't be there. So, for example, when people say, Katie, why don't you stand for Reform? You know, that's a very long way from understanding Reform's position. Nigel Farage would rather catch Ebola than be seen in the same image as me or Tommy. It's imperative for him to self-preserve, and self-preservation means don't be seen anywhere near, do never support anything we're up to, even though they're trying to speak to our core audience, which is really actually an authentic audience. The other thing is, so you see someone like Michelle Dubes, and no criticism of anybody on GB News, but she's like, oh, I just happened to be in London, so I just happened to walk past the protest. So that's a signal to my bosses, don't get cross with me, I didn't actually attend, I just happened to be there. It's all fine, just so you know that that tweet is worded so carefully so as not to piss off her employers, because she still wants to keep that job. And arguably having GB News is better than not having it. But just to explain. The other thing about this self-preservation is it means that people feel the need to preface stuff. So like, I'm no fan of Tommy, but you should watch Silenced. Or I can't stand Katie Hopkins, but she has got a point here. And prefacing is just another way of self-preservation. Those are people who see, who know what we're doing, but are needing to still hold on to this, don't want to lose followers, don't want to lose support of people who aren't supporters, so are indicating to them via that technique of, I'm no fan of Tommy, I'm no fan of Katie, but self-preserving. There's something else as well, and this has a tone about it, which is going to sound harsh, but I'm just going to give it to you bluntly. When people say, I just happened to be at the Freedom Rally, and do you know what? It was a peaceful and supportive and enthusiastic affair. There's a really big part of me that wants to say, do you know what? F you. Because I know that, we know that. It's a strange one when people meet me, for example, and they say, oh, you're nothing like what I thought you were. I always say, oh, thank you, that's very kind. No, I'm just an ordinary person. But there's a big part of me that would always want to say, yes, I know. I know who I am. You're the one who was conned. You're the one who preferred the lie. And I feel that way as well about the Freedom Rally. People say, oh, it was a positive and uplifting thing from what I saw. Yes, we know. We know because we were there. We've been there for 4 years through ridiculous lockdowns and all the rest of it. Some of us have been around there for 10, 15 years. I know who our people are. And they're marvellous. So I understand you're being kind of supportive by saying it was a surprise to see so many people having a nice time, but we know that already. It's just you that doesn't, and frankly, you need to catch up. And then I suppose, most importantly of all, in terms of self-preservation, that's what the powerful are relying on. And of course, people have to protect their marriages, their jobs, their ability to pay their mortgage because they want to look after their kids. That's what the powerful are relying on. Tommy didn't get arrested for terrorism offences. He got arrested so that that would be labelled a terrorist activity. And in the minds of all the attendees or future attendees, well, I can't afford to go to that rally because I don't want to lose my mortgage, my marriage, my job. I don't want to be labelled too. I can't afford to be labelled a terrorist. And if I go to Trafalgar Square, I'm at a terrorist rally. So that's how this works. It's relying on you to need to self-preserve, which of course every normal person does. But I suppose when you're 15,000 feet above looking down or looking at the bigger picture, what you see is that everyone's self-preserving is self-preserving on smaller and smaller bits of ice, and that ice is melting away. And eventually, like polar bears or sea lions, when whales come to attack, everybody gets swept into the sea. Morning thoughts whilst running on self-preservation. Lots of love to Tommy and his family, and a big thank you to everybody who showed up to stand ground for Tommy outside Parliament yesterday. As always, the more eyes and the more voices we have, the more powerful we become. So more from me shortly, no doubt, and I will go and have a shower.